There are plenty of things that I wish I knew about altcoins, because from my personal experience, I had to find out and learn the hard way, losing money, wasting time, and years of avoidable agony. Nobody told me the things that I'm going to be telling you today. I just want to make something very clear before I get into the charts that I'm going to show you today, and it's that altcoins don't run until the latter part of the cycle. I'm going to show you proof of that, and I'm going to show you things that I should have been told. I'm not blaming anybody, but these are things that I wish I knew when I started investing in altcoins and in crypto as a whole. I'm pretty much trying to reiterate the fact that you should probably be staying patient, because this is the part of the cycle where most people capitulate. And I'm going to prove it to you and show you what you should be doing in the charts right now. So looking over here, we can see the others chart. Now, the others is everything that's not in the top 10 as far as market cap. So this is like your large caps, your mid caps, your small caps. This is our current cycle. This is the last cycle. And this down here is the 2017 cycle. Now, doesn't it look so tiny, so small compared to these other charts? And usually this is how previous cycles tend to look over time, right? So let me just zoom out and zoom in here so you guys can see what I'm about to talk about. So looking at this chart here, remember, these are all of your small caps. So people are always asking me in the comment section and on my day-to-day basis, like, why are altcoins not moving? Why haven't I made any money yet? Why am I still down, right? And it's because the altcoins that we choose to invest in to make those really good gains here on this channel don't start moving drastically until the latter part of the cycle. Now, obviously, if you bought in when I first talked about a lot of these altcoins, or you just bought pretty much anywhere between 2023 that year, you would be up right now, like most of us are on this channel. If you bought a lot of the tokens that I champion, like Research Coin, Aerodrome, and Morpho that I talked about early last year, you'd be up right now. But for those of you who didn't find this channel till recently, it's okay. Don't worry. I'm going to walk you through the steps here. So anyways, back to the charts. This is 2017, right? I want to bring out a little date range here, okay? And I'm going to show you exactly how many months it took for us to reach the top of the cycle for the others, right? Everything out of the top 10 as far as market cap. Now, if you look at this first green candle here, this first blip, right? Let me just zoom in a little bit more, right? You can see here that it roughly took from the parabolic movement started, right? It took a roughly 56 days. That's less than 2 months. And that's when we got most of the movement for those smaller caps, mid caps, and those large cap moves, right? Now, if you zoom on over to the previous cycle, this is obviously 2021 top. And now, mind you, we had two tops. So I'm going to actually detail out both of the charts here, because I want you to see what both of those charts look like from the lows. Now I'm going to take my little date over here, my little date calendar. Now from the first green candle all the way up to when we peaked, we had about 133 days, around 5 months or so. So literally, you saw in 2017, we had about 2 months from the bottom of the others chart to the top of the others chart. In the last cycle, we saw just over 133 days, which was roughly around 5 months or so, 4 or 5 months or so. Now we're going to take a look at the second top, right? The double top of last cycle. If you detail the chart out here, how long it took us to get to the top, around 112 days. So under 4 months, we saw another top in the others chart. Now let's take a quick look at the current cycle and where we are out in the last biggest movements that we've had, which was obviously last year around Q1, Q2. So let's just take the date range again, and we're going to detail this out on the chart. Look at that, 30 days. We had a massive movements in all lower caps, mid caps, and some large caps. And the first pump of the others in this particular cycle, we saw it in roughly under 2 months. Now, mind you, you're going to miss a lot of these moves, especially you're not going to get good price entries on a lot of these moves if you're not buying. And I'll get my little circle out here so you can see what I'm talking about. If you're not buying these moments here, right? This is where you generally want to be buying when it comes to others, anything out of the top 10. We just had one of these moments as well, right, where we could have been buying down here over the past couple months. And if we were to go all the way back out to 2017, that cycle as well, you would have seen what the perfect time is to be buying a lot of these altcoins, because you probably would have wanted to get them down here, right? That's where you want to be buying a lot of these altcoins that are outside of the top 10 in market cap, as I reiterate. Okay, so let's just move the chart back over here again so you can see what I'm talking about. So the whole point that I'm trying to make here is that you want to be patient, and you want to make sure that you're following and watching these charts. If you start to see the others chart to spike upward up here, yeah, it might be time for us to get out of the market, right? But obviously, this is why you subscribe to the channel, you follow me, and you watch these videos, because I'm going to be telling you when to get out the market. I'm going to be telling you about all these things. To reiterate on my last point, I want to bring up another chart that correlates with the other chart, which is Bitcoin dominance. Now, Bitcoin dominance is in a weird place right now, because we're currently around, if you can detail this line out here roughly, very rough trend line, we're actually hitting and about to break through a lot of previous support. You can see it right here on the chart. There's a lot of previous price action. We actually bounce off the line here, and we have a little bit of price action a bit above and a bit below here as well. So you can see the volume spikes down here on the chart. And pretty much what I want to tell you is that Bitcoin's hitting a very crucial point. We've always trended downward from the 65 to around the 70 point mark, as you can see here. Let me just draw another trend line out for you so you can see that roughly here, just around the 70 point mark. And we're actually about to break through a lot of support here. Now, when we see Bitcoin dominance start to fall downward towards the 45 to 40% level, is when we usually see on the others chart, we see that others chart start to spike upward, but very parabolically upward. Okay. Now, I actually want to bring something out even way back to the 2014 to 2017 era. There was a point at which Bitcoin was really the only thing that had market value, right? Market cap. Roughly around 98 to 99%. Now, Ethereum was roughly out around this time, XRP and a few other altcoins as well, obviously, but they didn't really have any sizable market cap, right? As soon as we got that ICO craze in 2017, you can see that we had Bitcoin dominance fall off a cliff, because people had other crypto assets that they could now finally invest in. So this is a pretty good metric to watch as well, to see where we are at with our altcoins and where we should be looking to eventually sell our altcoins. So like I said before, if we go anywhere between this 40, let's just roughly draw it out here, I would say anywhere in this bracket, so around the 47 to, I wouldn't want to wait all the way till we get completely down to 40%, before we get below 40%, but right around 40%. Is where you probably want to be taking the bulk of your profits. Now, I'm also going to be showing you when that time comes, so you don't really have much to worry about. Now, the reason why you see a lot of people waver and get emotional about things, either it's too greedy or too fearful, and this is pretty much the chart to detail that out. This is the fear and greed index, and it's going to show you people's emotions, right, over the course of the last few years. Now, you know that on this channel, we do not trade with emotions. We do not buy and sell with emotions. We only look at what the data is telling us. Now, our data gets updated all the time. Things change. Macroeconomic wise, things change as far as M2 money supply, business cycle, maybe with a particular altcoin, something fundamentally changes. And those are the things that allow us to either switch to other assets or sell or buy different altcoins and so on and so forth. But the one thing that we never let sway us is our fear, right? Our greed, our emotions. Looking at this chart here, you can see anytime we've fell into the 20 range, it's been a pretty good time to buy Bitcoins and altcoins. They also correlate with the Bitcoin price and the others chart as well. So if you look here, you can see in March of 2025, which is when we actually started dipping down. That was when all of the tariff news came around and people got really scared. We dipped on the fear and greed. Great place to buy. You can also go back on the chart here and see around September, before we got that run up in December up here, would have been a pretty good place to buy. And you can see this little gray line here. I'm going to zoom in for you on the chart, but you can see this gray line. This is actually Bitcoin's price. So you can see all these dips in the fear and greed correlate to the price of Bitcoin, right? Even if you go as far back into January 2014, before we got that nice spike up in I think it was end of Q1, beginning of Q2, We also saw that on the Fear and Greed Index, and this also would have been a great time to sell. So on the contrary, when we get up above 80 on the Fear and Greed Index, also a pretty good time to take some profits. Because one thing I want to say is that if you're not buying at the most opportune time, it's kind of pointless. No matter what you do, no matter what altcoin you pick, doesn't really matter if you're not picking up at a good price point, because you're going to be holding your bags for years and you're going to be missing out on a lot of yield and a lot of potential gains and appreciation in your assets, which is never fun and it's never good. It makes it harder to hold crypto as well because it's so volatile and it takes long periods of time to see that real 10, 20, 50, 100x type of potential in gains. So if you're buying at good price points, you'll see your portfolios greener a lot sooner and for a lot longer. Easy enough, easy said. Now I want to touch on a point that I touched on very briefly in the last part of this particular video, where I talked about the fundamentals changing of altcoin. These are the only reasons you should be worried about whether your altcoin is going to make it or not. Like they talk about when altcoin season comes around, right? If nothing has changed fundamentally about your altcoin, you should not be worried. If your particular altcoin hasn't been hacked, you should not be worried. If your particular altcoin has not lost significant market share compared to the other altcoins in its narrative, you should not be worried. If the team or the founders or the early investors haven't sold a bunch of their bag and dumped it on the market, you should not be worried. Have they rebranded and lost massive amounts of traction and momentum? Right? I always talk about investing in things that haven't had a bull cycle yet, because this is when you particularly see crypto assets at their absolute highest, right? Is when they haven't had a bull market yet, because there is no particular ceiling for that particular altcoin. Now, I want to give you a very good example in Phantom. Now, I don't know how many of you know about Phantom. Phantom was very, very hyped in the last bull cycle. It's fallen off since then. You can actually see on this chart the run up that it had. It got up to around 8 billion, or close to $8 billion in market cap, if not $8 billion in market cap. Fell all the way back down and has been trying to fight back ever since. And then right here, you can see this little flat line right here. Let me zoom in so you can see it on the chart. Now, what does this flat line tell you, right? They had a token migration to Sonic, right? Now, the reason why they do these things is to fool, in my personal opinion, is to fool you guys or fool new investors that don't know better, right? Phantom is the same thing. It's Sonic with a rebrand. Of course, they're going to tell you to make all these technological upgrades and things like that. I don't know if they have or not. I haven't done the research. I don't really care to do the research on Phantom, because they have consistently shown that they can't grab market share. This is a Ethereum layer 2, by the way, if you didn't know. But they're pretty much offering the same thing they're offering Phantom with a new chart and a new wrapper on it. And the chart still hasn't done that well. From when they migrated, they've also fallen down a whole nother 66%, something like that, right? So for me personally, when it comes to, I'm not saying Phantom can't do well, but there's better options out there now for sure when it comes to layer 1 blockchains, and definitely better layer 2s. Base, is my favorite layer 2 EVM chain. Love Binance in the last cycle as well. It's pretty good. But the point I'm trying to make here is that this is a token that if you are holding in Phantom or you're holding in Sonic, you migrate your tokens over, this is something I wouldn't personally be investing in, because the team behind this token is having a lot of trouble gaining users and market share and revenue and all of those other things. I have my favorite token, Morpho. Well, I shouldn't say favorite, one of my favorites, because I also love Aerodrome. I love Research Coin. I love Morpho, and there's a lot of others too. But the reason why I want to talk about this is because Morpho has a vesting schedule, and all tokens, mind you, have a vesting schedule. This is another thing that kills a lot of altcoin bags and a lot of altcoin holders, right? You want to be coming over to a site like cryptorank.io and checking out to see when a lot of the tokens that are locked up with strategic holders, with the founders, with the team, with whatever, right? The early contributors, as you can see down here. And you pretty much want to know when those things are going to be hitting the market, because you're going to be dealing with a lot more dilution in the market, right? A lot more supplies coming out. And if you don't have a lot of buyers for the supply, guess what happens to price? The price goes down. So looking at this chart here, the blue line is our current date. You can see that at our current date, we only have about less than 0.5% to come out next month, around 3%. And this is actually the last month where we have a considerable amount of Morpho being dropped onto the market, all the way until mid 2026, Q2, I'll call it, sorry, Q2 2026, right? And even then, you have less than 1% being unlocked per month, right? Which is absolutely nothing. So why am I telling you this? What I'm telling you is that we're about to go into the most parabolic part of the market, whether it happens Q1 or Q2 of 2026 or Q4 of this year. You have a token that doesn't have much dilution coming out to the market, but I can for sure tell you that you're going to have a lot more buyers coming to like gobble up and buy this altcoin, right? So you're not going to have to worry about dilution at least until Q2, mid to end of Q2 of 2026, which means you're pretty much going to have a green light for prices to go higher, along with everything else that I talked about in the last video. If you haven't seen that video, I need you to go and watch that video after this one. It's going to explain everything to you and when the top of this market cycle is potentially going to come and when you should be selling off a lot of your altcoins. Key points to bring up, and this is something very important. Every cycle is different and the hype for different narratives changes between different cycles and also throughout these cycles that we currently are in. Now, if you're looking at this cycle in particular, RWA has been the craze for everyone. You hear BlackRock talking about it. You hear the Trump administration talking about it. You hear a lot of politicians talking about it. You hear big institutions talking about it. Everyone's talking about stablecoins, RWAs, and everything else in between, okay? This is a site called rwa.xyz. I encourage you to check this site out because if you want to know anything about where RWAs are going, this is the site to do so. I'm not going to go through the whole site. If you want me to make a video on this site and break this down and other sites like this, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know. But anyways, to go over this quickly, you can see in the last 30 days, right? Total value of RWAs just went up 6.7%. That's nothing to sneeze at. The amount of holders that are holding RWA-based tokens went up 8.8%, just under 9%. That's nothing to sneeze at. There's over 27 networks, and you can bet your bottom dollar this is a lot of the largest networks that we have in crypto adopting altcoins, right? Institutions are coming in to buy stable coins. You can see it here. 278 billion. I made a video about stable coins a few weeks ago, right? And they're only at 250 billion. So we've actually added on another 28 billion. And this is detailed out here on the percent growth for the stablecoin market, right? And the amount of stablecoin holders up at 191 million stablecoin holders. So if you don't think people in, I hate to call it this, but for lack of a better term, third world countries aren't going to be buying stablecoins, you done lost your mind. Because we are here I'm personally live in Canada, but a lot of my viewers are in America and a lot of my viewers are also in Europe. We don't really worry that much because we hold US dollars, pounds, and things like that. I hold my dollars in stable coins, so US dollars as well. So we don't worry about these things because we can easily obtain US dollars. I can open up a US bank account if I choose to, but the point I'm trying to make is a lot of people around the world can't and haven't had this opportunity for a long time. So with something like Moonwell, you can hold actual US dollars, not stable coins that are just pegged to the US dollar, right? You can hold them in a check-ins account. This is why I love Moonwell. Just if I had to plug Moonwell in here for a second, but you can also just hold stable coins in your Ledger wallet, your Trezor wallet, your MetaMask, whatever. And you can go ahead and protect yourself from inflation of your particular currency. And this is one of the reasons why stablecoins are going to be absolutely massive. So to tie everything up in a knot in a bow, if you're not in RWAs, if you're not in AI or in DeFi, you're doing something wrong. Another key thing that I wish I knew before I bought altcoins was how to check TVL growth. Now, I also talked about Spark, and it was a low-cost altcoins video I dropped. I think it's like 2 or 3 videos ago that I dropped. You can go check it on my channel after this video. And Spark is killing the game. They have only $108 million in market cap as of today, and they have over 7.6 billion sitting in their platform. And you can see the chart here from when they started to offer their services, which is pretty much the deal with stablecoins, right? They have only grown in TVL over time, which is what you want to see, right? That means there's interest in this platform. That means there's value being put into this platform. If you don't see TVL growing for your particular altcoin, then there's something wrong, right? You should probably look into why nobody cares enough to put their money in this particular platform, right? Is it serving a large enough purpose for what they're claiming to do, right? Are they the largest in the market, or have at least a decent size of the market share, right? A decent size slice of the pie. And TVL is one of the best ways to measure a crypto altcoin or tokens value. Moving on here, another quick point that ties into TVL growth, and this one is about Aerodrome that I talked about earlier in this video. Look at the token holder growth, man. Token holder growth has been absolutely astounding. You can see we had this big spike over here. This was in earlier February 2025. Over the course of that month, we had a big spike in token holder growth, but you can see steadily over time, people have found more interest in Aerodrome, and people are buying Aerodrome, holding Aerodrome, staking Aerodrome, getting yield on their Aerodrome. So this is another thing you want to check out before you go ahead and you buy an altcoin, right? These are things I wish I knew. This is why I'm telling you these things. So I don't know if this is the most important thing. You know what? I would say this part is probably the most important, because this is going to stop you in avoiding rug pulls. And this is the biggest thing. Most people fall into the trap of buying a token with terrible tokenomics, number one, and tokens that have a lot of flaws in their code. So I'm going to head over to CoinGecko. I'm going to grab the contract address for Chainlink, and on D.Fi, I'm going to go over to their scanner tab on the left-hand side of the website. And this is going to scan the contract code for Chainlink. Let's pick it up here. The one on ETH, of course. Don't care about the one on Luna or Linear, whatever the hell it's called. Not important. We're going to give it a second here to load. And what D.Fi does, it's going to scan the contract code address. You can see the security down here, but it's going to give you a DeFi score and a safety score. So overall, it gets 100%. And the only one is for dump risk, and that's because a large amount of the token holders are concentrated in the top 10 token holders, which for me isn't that big a deal, right? The creator of the token, so the foundation, holds about 12.8%. And you can see over here that the top 10% holds, I think, about 31% of the token, which is why you're getting this dump risk over here now. Do I think Chainlink's going to dump on you? Absolutely not. And the reason why I say that is because most of the token is pretty much already out onto the market, right? You're not going to see much more. And if we were to go check the vesting schedule for Chainlink, it probably shows you that it's pretty much linear over time at this point, and you're not going to really see a bunch of dumpers now. Besides Bitcoin, Chainlink is the most useful cryptocurrency that we have, period, right? Chainlink is an oracle, and it allows real-world data to be put on chain, and it allows different blockchains to communicate with each other. This is one of the single most important things that we need in crypto, period, bar none. But anyways, to get back to D.Fi, this is going to stop you from getting rug pulled, because as soon as you put a fraudulent token address in the top scanner here, right, it's going to tell you everything that's wrong with it, right? Assuming Chainlink was one of these tokens, right, you're going to see no limit transfers. It's not going to allow you to trade the token. There's going to be no liquidity. It's going to say that there's external risk. It's going to say that the token holder address was a scammer or has been found to be scamming before. It's going to tell you pretty much anything that you need to know about why you shouldn't buy a token, or in this case, why you should be buying a token. Now, if you don't have people to buy your token, how are you going to make any money? Because from the moment that you buy your particular altcoin, right, the only way you make money is if someone buys it higher. So you want to make sure that your altcoin is easily available. And we can see here that Chainlink is available on Crypto.com, Kraken, Coinbase, Binance, KuCoin, Bybit, CoinW, OKX. It's pretty much everywhere, and everywhere where you're going to see people buy it. Now, I'm sure it's on a lot of dexes as well, like Uniswap, one of the more notable ones, especially for the Ethereum chain. So you want to make sure there's going to be liquidity coming into your token. If your particular altcoin is in two places, there's two ways that you can look at this. One, from the sense that the token hasn't been really discovered yet, and there's a lot of potential for it to get on a lot of these bigger exchanges, where you're going to see a lot of that massive price movement just from it being listed on these big exchanges. That's one thing. But two, you can also look at it from the lens of you can only buy whatever particular altcoin you're holding in one place, maybe some random DEX. So how are people expected to find that particular token, right? How are people going to be able to buy this thing? A lot of people don't know how to use DEXs. They don't know how to navigate DeFi, right? When I first came into crypto, I was holding everything on crypto.com. I didn't know anything about MetaMask or DeFi as well. Those are good things to keep at the front of your brain when considering buying altcoins. Now, this is everything that I wish I knew about altcoins. If this helped you at all, leave a like on the video. I love you guys so very much, and I'll see you in the next one.